been in a hospital? You're visiting someone or you're in the hospital and you just feel like you're being watched. Like this eerie feeling, like there is a weight on you. Granted, I do feel that most hospitals have this energy, a weight to them, simply because people don't come to hospitals for good reasons usually. Typically people come to the hospital for a bad reason, whether it be an accident or an illness or something like that. And actually, in the United States, one of the most common places that people die is hospitals. And so it makes sense that it would have an eerie weight to it. I was visiting someone in the hospital recently. The pain and weight of being in the hospital and just feeling that energy from people and feeling like I'm being watched and feeling like I'm not alone. And like I said, a lot of people die in hospitals. So who's to say that they're not haunted? A lot of the times you watch paranormal investigators investigate places, it's typically an asylum or a hospital or something of the like. Or a house that was used as a medical facility back in the day. And typically those are the places that have these heavy experiences. I was thinking about this because I was recently visiting someone in the hospital and recently had a death in my family, that I kind of went down this rabbit hole of stories told by medical professionals, nurses, EMTs, CNAs, doctors, stories of ghost experiences that they have had and experiences and things that they have seen and felt and experienced. And I thought it'd be cool to kind of share those. I wrote some of them down because I thought they were really interesting. Most of them are from Reddit. If anybody's gonna see ghosts or have these experiences, it's going to be medical professionals because they're some of the people that are the closest to death. So these are some Reddit stories that I found of nurses and EMTs sharing spooky experiences that they have had while working and on the job. Before we continue, I wrote down some percentages and numbers of like the most common deaths and like hospital deaths because I'm morbid as fuck and I find it really interesting, like numbers and statistics really interesting. So in the United States, the most common places of death are home, long-term care facilities like nursing homes and hospice and hospitals. In the US, more than 700,000 people die in the hospitals each year. The number is actually declining, which is a good thing, in comparison to home deaths, which is actually increasing. More people are dying at home than they are dying in hospitals, probably due to, illnesses and homicides and self-exits, unfortunately. Typically, the deaths that it's mostly from sepsis and misdiagnosis. For those of you who aren't sure what misdiagnosis is, it's basically when a doctor either overlooks a disease or misdiagnoses you with something that you don't have or like diagnoses you too late. And the most common group of people that get misdiagnosed, like the 20 to 30%, are women and minorities, which is really fucked up. One study estimated that medical misdiagnosis led to 371,000 deaths in the US and 424,000 permanent disabilities each year. So, I know we're talking about ghosts, but all I gotta say is advocate for yourself and always get a second opinion. More deaths occur in hospitals in the US than anywhere else. The number is declining, which is good because more technology is coming out, more education, less malpractice, more hygiene, stuff like that. It's still a lot of deaths, but I just found it very interesting. And it makes sense that there would be a large amount of spiritual or ghost occurrences because there's so many deaths that happen. First story is from a nurse named Lynn. Lynn wrote, I had several experiences as a charge nurse in a nursing home. Once as I made rounds, I noticed a resident lying in bed who'd been hospitalized for over a week. I welcomed her back and asked the CNA about her return. I was told she was still in the hospital. I said no, and I just talked to her and brought the other nurse to the room to prove it. No one was in the bed, and it was perfectly made. Several hours later, the hospital called to inform us that our resident died. The time of death was around the same time that I saw her. I can only guess that she came to say goodbye. This is interesting to me because I remember having an experience where when I worked in a nursing home when I was 16 or 17, I remember walking past a room and seeing someone sitting on a bed in the room out of the corner of my eye, and then kind of double taking. And when I double took, like when I looked to really see if there was someone in there, there wasn't. And so that's partly why I wrote down this one in particular, because it kind of gave me the chills, because I've had a similar experience where I saw someone out of the corner of my eye sitting on a bed, and then when I actually looked, there was nobody there. So this one I found really interesting, and I had actually heard several CNAs and other people have experiences in nursing homes, because it makes sense, because for a lot of people, that's their last place before they die. And there's a lot of malpractice in nursing homes, but for some places, you know, it's the last place that they get comfort and seen, and some of the nurses are the last people to take care of them. So I love the idea that someone came back to kind of like say goodbye before they moved on to the next chapter of their life. So I like this one a lot. This one wasn't creepy to me. This one was kind of just interesting. This one was actually kind of creepy. I can't remember if I found it on Reddit or somewhere else, but because I had been researching these and reading them over a span of a couple of days and then writing them down. But it was written by a nurse named Chad. And Chad said that he once had a patient that was screaming staff members' names and was banging on the walls instead of using the call light. That night she passed away, and Chad was helping clean her up and emptied the soiled linen cart. As he was emptying the soiled cart, he swears he heard his name being screamed in that patient's voice, and he ran out of the spoiled linen room and never went back in there alone. Can you imagine? First of all, people screaming and yelling and banging scares me anyway. Just there's something about it that freaks me out. But the fact that this person died and he heard her voice yell his name after, like, she had recently died and he heard it. That's creepy to me. And I mean, like, you know, she's got, I mean, it's soiled linen, so there's probably like bodily fluids on it. And so some of her is left behind, and so maybe she was left behind. I also hate the idea of that she was banging on the walls for a bad reason, like a sad reason. But can you imagine how creepy? I would never go back into that room again by myself either. So, this one, I forgot to write down the name, but this one is from Reddit. So, one of my old floors I worked on, we always had weird occurrences happen at night. It was a neuro step-down unit. This unit had glass walls so you could chart and monitor your patient. We had a patient who had severe stroke and was nonverbal, feeding tube, restraint, total care, etc. They rarely had family visit too. In the middle of the night, the call light went off. When I answered it, a woman said, "He is really hurting, he needs his pain medication." So I walk into the room to check on him. The room is dark and nobody is in there, and the patient is asleep. I tell his nurse and what happened, and I go to sit back down. The call light goes off again in his room, and the same voice says, "Please, he is really hurting." I tell his nurse, and she gives him pain medication through his peg, and we reposition him in bed. The call light didn't go off again. It was really eerie. Strange things happened on that floor. I find that fascinating. I wonder if this is a person watching over him, like a wife or a family member that died before, and he's in so much pain, but he can't say it, and so someone's looking out for him. Or it could be a guardian or something protecting him, and I find that so fascinating because it goes back to disembodied voices and hearing voices. It's just creepy. It's creepy. The last story I'm going to talk about comes from an EMT who is a Reddit user, and damn, I suck at writing these names down, but it was from Reddit and an EMT, and it said, the user said that I've been an EMT for years and I have some crazy experiences. One in particular sticks out to me. I was in the basement of the hospital grabbing a new gurney as ours was ripped apart from a violent patient. It was 3 a.m. PICU was on the 3rd floor and it was locked down for a night. No visitors in the hospital. The basement storage was packed with stuff, so when I felt my shirt get pulled on, I assumed it got caught on an object. Then it happened again, only this time I heard a little girl's voice, crystal clear, say, "I'm lost." My heart was pounding. I felt the hairs on my body stand up, and I called my partner down to help with the gurney. Again. disembodied voices. It's terrifying. But I do feel like we can sense when something's amiss. When the energy is amiss, we can feel it. Some of us more than others, but we can feel it. And that would be so fucking scary, to be in a basement by yourself trying to get a gurney after you had a violent experience with a patient, and you hear a little girl's voice speak to you, and then you look around, there's nobody there. And I didn't write this down, but apparently other people have had similar experiences down in that basement of hearing a little girl's voice. Children ghosts freak me out, especially since a lot of the times entities of a not so nice nature use children and innocence as a way to get to people, and that's also scary to me. And also, it's really sad because the idea of a little girl dying in the hospital and then getting lost in the basement is also really sad. So it's scary. I've also had experiences with children ghosts, and I've talked about it on this channel before, but a quick version is my cousins and my sister and I were playing hide and go seek in the dark. I hid behind a plant, and there was this kid hiding with me who had, their face was so white it glowed in the dark. Like, you know how someone can be super pale that you can kind of see them in the dark? It was like white. And I remember feeling this eerie feeling like it wasn't right, like this wasn't right, like my instincts were going off, but I kind of tried to ignore it because I didn't want to be found. And when we were found, I looked around for that kid and he wasn't there. They weren't there. And so, like, and I lived in a house where you could hear children laughing and running outside on the gravel, but there was nobody there. So children ghosts scare me. And so this one, like, gave me the chills and made me feel weird. And it makes me feel weird because, and this is an EMT. This is a dude who has seen things, experienced things, and it scared him enough to where he didn't want to be down there by himself, so he called his partner. Like, that's creepy. So I forgot to do an outro for this video because I had to go pick up my sister, and then it just completely, like, escaped me. So here's this outro, like, a couple of days after. So those were a few stories that I found on Reddit and Quora and just on the internet of medical professionals sharing their own spooky experiences. Like I mentioned before in the video, to me it makes sense that they would have these experiences because they're extremely close to death and really traumatic experiences. So it makes sense that they'd see things and have these moments. Sometimes they are the last people that people see. So it's really fascinating. I highly recommend going and looking up some of these stories because some of them are really chilling and some of them are just really sweet and really interesting and can touch your heart or, you know, chill your bones and, you know, make your skin crawl. So yeah, but I find them really fascinating. And as someone who worked in a nursing home for a little while and has seen things and heard things before, and someone who has experiences often, I find these stories extremely interesting. So yeah. And if you like this video, go ahead and give it a thumbs up. If you want to subscribe, hit the subscribe button. I hit 500 subscribers recently, which is absolutely wild to me. And I thank everybody who is part of my channel and watches my videos. You're all incredible, and it's so exciting for me. And yeah, so thank you. And I hope that you have a wonderful day and a beautiful night. And this is Kat signing off. Bye.